What's up, guys? It's Snugs, and today we are gonna talk about my build. And just a quick disclaimer: this is a build overview, not a build guide. Meaning, I'm just kind of demonstrating and showing what I have decided to do with this build. It's a slightly different variant from what I've seen out there. I have taken ideas from other content creators, so credit to where credit's due. Zboob, some of the ideas come from him, some come from Empyrean Gaming, some come from Anime Princess, so it's just kind of a combination of a lot of other streamers. Some of the choices that I've made in this build are a little bit different. I am not saying go out and make this build, right? It's probably multi-mirror build at this point. However, it not really. It's kind of like each piece is maybe 20 divines. Plus you've got Temporalis, which I purchased at the time. I traded for it. It was like 180 div before the whole duping fucking thing got out of hand and crazy. So I paid a lot more than than it's currently listed on the trade site. I think they're running like 25 div right now, which is absolutely insane to see, because they were, when I started thinking about picking up a Temporalis, they were around 200 div. But anyway, I'm just going to do a quick build overview and kind of the thoughts on this build. But first I'm going to go into a map and actually just kind of display how this build works. And I'm just going to do it really quick. The whole idea of this build is I still want to have really good damage, and I want to have really high defenses. One thing I learned from POE1 is I really don't like dying, even though I'm playing softcore. And especially the XP penalty is so brutal in POE2. I'm at level 96 right now, about 5% away from 97, but the XP penalty is absolutely brutal. And so I don't really want to die. And so what I have done is I have basically a 9,100 energy shield, right? And then on top of that, I have Grim Feast. So after I kill a bunch of enemies, it doubles. So effectively, when I'm fully buffed, I have about an 18,000 energy shield hit point, on top of having about a 90,000 tooltip. Yes, this number can get a lot higher, but what I prefer is the utility and the defenses and the damage. This is, all content viable, can do any boss in the game, no problem. But it's a culmination of everything to kind of make it work for everything as best as I possibly could. But I'm going to run this Spiderwood real quick. I'm just going to kind of show you what this build looks like in action. People who have checked out my stream have already seen what this looks like, but just for the people on YouTube land, I will go ahead and just run a little bit of a map so you can see kind of how fast it is. The idea that I want to take, and let's go ahead and do the mirror as well. Hopefully my frame rates aren't too bad today. I've got some issues I need to fix. Maybe we're going to cancel Delirium. Let's go ahead and get rid of Delirium, because I don't know why my frame rates are so bad. I do have Beyond on this map as well, so it's extra laggy. But the idea is to Temporalis, you blink once, throw out a few sparks, everything dies on your way, so you're clearing the map just really, really quickly. Rares die really quick, as you just saw right there. And I think there was a boss. But the main reason I wanted to kind of make the build like this is so I could do Ritual really, really quickly, right? So you put down your Sigil of Power, you put down your Orb of Storms, everything dies, and it's pretty simple. It's great at breaches. You can do pretty much any content you want with this build for sure. We'll pick up the ring while we're for the stream. I'm trying to make it fast, but the whole idea is, yeah, you can start kind of, maybe you want to clear one side of the breach, then you can, pop back over real fast to the other side, clear the other side. And it can tank mostly everything in the game. Ground effects and one-shots will end up still killing me if you're not careful, so you have to be careful on especially what's on the ground. That seems to be the thing that really can take my head off. But anyway, that's kind of enough of that. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of keep going on the rituals here, because this really is the main reason I wanted to do this. I knew I liked Ritual from the start, but yeah, this build just does a pretty damn good job at everything. As you can see, that rare just got absolutely crushed. So damage is definitely not an issue on this build. Survivability is excellent. And yeah, I've just been really enjoying it. But let's go ahead and get out of the map. And hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of what this build looks like. I'm going to jump into the gear first and kind of show you what I've opted for. It is still an Archmage build, aka meaning I'm still stacking mana. I'm stacking a lot of cast speed. Blink kind of feels better. The cast animation with cast speed, so it's still good to stack a lot of cast speed. It doesn't affect the cooldown time, right? Blink has a cooldown time of 3.3 seconds, if I remember correctly. Yeah, cooldown time 3.3 seconds. And my Temporalis is rolled at 3.83. So as long as your Temporalis is above 3.3 seconds, there's no handicap there. But what does kind of affect the feel of it, and it's more of a feel thing, right? Because the cast animation is faster, is cast speed. But anyway, let's start with the wand. I actually had a better wand than this that I sold off for like 60 div or something. This one's been perfectly fine. What I would like to see improved on this is a higher spell damage roll. If I can get that 80 plus spell damage roll with the +5 and even a tier 1 cast speed would be really sick. But this is good enough for now. This is still a pretty damn good wand. My gloves are really good. I have a little bit of rarity on them. When I was searching for this, I was searching for res, intelligence, mana, and good ES. It does have the damage penetrates 10% lightning res. It's a really sweet corrupt on them. This was just a trade site score that I got randomly. Res, cast speed, good mana, all res. Because of ingenuity, your ring slots are incredibly important, especially on this build. I have a 78% with cold res corrupted on it. But mana, cast speed, and light res are really the big thing here. The dex is nice if I want to fit some more spells or play around with some more spells in it. This one just has a bunch of rarity, res, and a bunch of mana. 244 combined mana on this one. Pretty sweet ring. This one has got 65 spirit, energy shield, a little bit of rarity, +3 to all spell skills. Getting and lightning rod anoint. For people who don't know, what lightning rod does is it rolls lucky. So it takes lightning damage, which has a huge spread of what damage it can actually choose. Right, so if you look at 1456 to 31457, that is an enormous gap where your damage can actually land on the hit. So what Lightning Rod does is it rolls twice. So for each hit, it will roll twice, and it will pick the higher roll. Essentially, I think this adds like 30% overall damage. It's a really expensive anoint, but it's a really good anoint. So I wouldn't put this on an amulet. That's not worth keeping. For me, this amulet's worth keeping. I could definitely improve this, but the 65 spirit, the maximum energy shield, the +3 to all skills, really nice little, really pretty decent little ammy here. Temporalis, we've kind of already talked about. The biggest thing with this, it does have a perfect maximum energy shield. I actually divined this myself. +16 to all res. Really good, and then a really good high cooldown roll. The thing is with Temporalis, you have to change a lot around the build in order to make it work and feel good with Temporalis. I changed several pieces of gear to be able to fit in Temporalis. So not only when it was 180 divines when I traded for it, but I had to change multiple pieces of gear to make this build work and feel good. And that's the key word, is feel good. The offhand has a bunch of cast speed, +2 to all skills, bunch of mana, good ES, and then it's got the mana jewel in there, the soul core. Just basic stats on here. The crit hit chance for spells is pretty bad, actually, because I'm not playing a crit build. What I would recommend is probably in that slot, intelligence or a res is probably going to be your best bet. If you really want, you can go rarity. I honestly don't care that much about rarity, though. I have more than enough to feel good, and rarity will probably get heavily nerfed or even wiped through the game, so cool. That doesn't bother me if it does or doesn't, honestly. On the offhand, I have a chiming staff, which is the important part, is the Sigil of Power, right? I have my swap set up, so once I cast Sigil of Power and then another swap, it'll automatically swap me back to the other side. That's a whole separate topic, but basically you can set it up to automatically swap. There are a lot of videos on how to do this, but that's it. This Sigil of Power starts buffing my DPS like absolute crazy. As you can see, when I'm fully buffed there, I start getting a monster amount of damage. about 145,000. Yes, there's other people out there that have way more damage than I do, but again, the whole purpose of this build was to feel good. It wasn't a stack as much damage as I possibly can. I could stack probably, I don't know, close to twice as much damage if I wanted to. The boots, I actually changed these. I went from a 35% increased movement speed. After I got Temporalis, I didn't care about having 35 quite as much. The rest of the stats on it were a little bit more important to me. It's got a really good mana roll, and it's got really good res on it, and pretty solid ES on it as well. So that's kind of why I ended up going with these. Charm, I am using immunity to freeze. In the build, in the tree I'll show you, I have stun threshold stuff on there, but I don't have a bunch of freeze threshold, so that's kind of why I opted for the freezing charm here. This could be interchangeable with stun and freeze. There are some nodes on the tree that you can take too to be able to swap depending on kind of how you're feeling and what's kind of annoying you. This, honestly, don't even need it because I'm full ES. I keep it there for the memes, I guess. Melting Maelstrom is a really, really good flask. It's really OP. Pretty much none of the stats actually matter on here, so when you're looking at buying one, I just buy the cheapest one that you can find and quality it up, honestly. But what this does is I'm dumping my mana down, and I lose it pretty fast, as you can see. But once I hit my mana flask, it goes completely up to the top. That way, I don't have to really worry about mana regen on all of my pieces of gear. It's just a really, really OP flask. I would actually suspect this is probably might see a slight nerf. I would say they're probably going to end up moving this to like maybe 75% mana full or something instead of 100%. I don't know. We'll see what they do with that, but it's stupidly, stupidly good. On the gem links, I'm using Spark, obviously. I'm still just using it. It ends up with all my plus skills being a level 30. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to go back over to the helmet. The combination of 65 spirit and 26 spirit here ends up being able to afford me 3 spirit spells. Archmage, obviously, which takes 100 spirit. That's coming solely from your quests out of the campaign. You end up with 100 spirit from there. Your blink is going to be 30. Excuse me, 60 spirit. So that's actually a pretty substantial amount to get blink. And then Grim Feast, which is the part that when you see me playing and you see my energy shield stacking up like crazy inside of the map, that's because of Grim Feast right here. You get a lot of questions on that. People aren't familiar with this. I expect Grim Feast will probably be nerfed. I think they will make it have maybe 50% effectiveness pretty soon. It is pretty damn strong right now. This is one of the strongest gems in the game for sure. But anyway, back to gem links. Spark, I'm using Arcane Tempo, more cast speed. Considered casting, less cast speed. This actually helps with mana a little bit, but 40% more damage with spell hits. The reason why more, the figure more is really important here because increased and more has an enormous difference. More is multiplicative, increased is additive. So if you don't understand the math behind that, 40% more is taking your entire pre-existing damage pool and multiplying it by another 40%, right? Versus additive, let's say you have 1,000%, you have 1,000% spell damage, right? And you increase it by 40%, it becomes 1,040%. It's not a huge, it's not a huge jump. More is a huge jump. So that's why I ended up using this. Acceleration, supported skills have 40% more projectile speed. When it comes to Spark, it's really, really important because the more time this has to zoom around, the more hits will actually hit a boss and things like that. Acceleration is pretty much a required gem in here. Inspiration, this is also pretty much required because the mana cost is so high when it comes to Spark and Archmage and all that stuff. Inspiration is pretty much required on here as well. The last one I'm using is Shock Siphon, and you don't have to use Shock Siphon, but what this does is recover 4% of energy shield when a supported skill deals a killing blow to a shocked enemy. Basically, my shit will instantly refill if I'm in a big pack of monsters. So if I drop to 100%, 100 energy shield from my 9,000 pool, I will. If I'm in a big pack of monsters, I'll pretty much instantly refill. Shock Siphon is really, really strong. Don't sleep on this gem link. It's just freaking good. Sigil of Power for my staff swap. Mana Tempest. essentially, I don't actually use it very much. I pretty much only use it on map bosses. But what it does is it ends up giving you a ton of damage. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Sigil of Power here. And I'm going to ramp it up. Then when I hit... Look, my damage absolutely goes through the roof when I hit it. So what this is doing is it's spending your mana to essentially give you more lightning damage. 6% of damage is lightning damage. This is a gem link you really don't even need in here, to be honest. But if you want a little bit extra bump in some kind of weird situations, you can go ahead and throw Mana Tempest in there. Then I'm using Premeditation. Skills empowered by supported deal 15% more damage. Again, more key there. Skills empowered by supported deals have Coaling Strike. So basically, I think it's either 10 or 15%. It's 10%, I think. I can't remember. Somebody correct me in the comments. But once a boss or an enemy gets low enough, it'll just disappear because it'll just 1-0 that last little bit of a boss if you have Mana Tempest. Archmage, this is what everybody's using. For every 100 mana, gain 9% is extra lightning damage. I have 3,800 mana. This is way low for what a lot of people are running. Again, this is a big reason why I don't have, 140,000, tooltip damage, because I'm not stacking 7,000 mana. Another version of what a lot of people are running on this build is they are running the no life. So they literally have no ES and no life, but they are running mind over matter on their skill tree. Let's see where mind over matter is. There we go. And that damage gets taken from their mana pool. So they're stacking a ton of mana, and then they are taking that damage reduction or that damage pool from their mana. I opted out not to do that. To me, this setup just feels way more comfy, even though I am sacrificing some damage to get to that point. Quite a bit of damage to get to that point. But let's keep kind of going over the gem links. Conductivity, this just essentially lowers their res. It just makes you essentially do more damage to big targets. Heightened curse on there, 25% increased effect of supported curses. I am lowering the resistance, I think, by about 65%. And that's not including lightning damage penetration, right? Curse zones, 30% reduced delay. Increased effect of cursive forces, and then Hex Bloom, it kind of ends up spreading out. This is really good for rituals. You can plop one down and then the curse will spread out through the entire ritual. On Blink, I'm just using Ingenuity. Doesn't even really need to be here, honestly. This is actually kind of bad gem link. It actually affects me not at all having this. Probably just will honestly remove that. I was just kind of messing with it to see if you felt anything, but you don't really. Orb of Storms. This is what you essentially are applying your shock with. So once you put your Orb of Storms down on the ground and you spark through it, it is forking, and on top of that, it is shocking. So it's just a nice. But yeah, Conduction has 100% more chance to shock. Lightning Exposure. Essentially, Lightning Exposure adds damage to enemies, and then Strip Away. Supported skills have 30% increased effect. This gem link adds a lot of damage, especially to targets that are really tanky. And then Font of Mana, 40% increased mana radiation rate while you're using Orb of Storms. So you can see that significantly. My mana pool is dropping a lot slower when I have this up. It's just a nice quality of life thing. Now, Frost Wall is more of a utility school. Once you put it down and you shoot through it, right, it will fracture and freeze. It's just, you don't even really need it. It's just a nice quality of life. If you have a bunch of, monsters that are bum rushing you, it's just kind of cool to be able to have it to just kind of provide a little bit more utility. On that, my links are Spell Cascade, which are, essentially allowing that to kind of grow and spread everywhere. And then Icicle. Ice created by supported skills have 50% less life. Grim Feast, I don't have any links on it. I could mess with some more links on that, but it's been just really good as is. On the tree, this is kind of where I'm pathing. We're taking some spell damage and cast nodes up here. Max Energy Shield, I'm taking pretty much everywhere that I can get it. Mana, the reoccurring theme that you're going to see throughout here is Energy Shield, Intelligence, Mana, Max EX, Percent ES, and then pretty much int nodes all the way around. I am using Chain, and I am not using any Pierce. That's a really controversial way to go. You guys saw my clear. My clear is ridiculous. I have, at this point, not felt like I need Pierce at all. It is harder to work into the build. If I want to work Pierce into the build, there's a couple ways that you could do it. You could go with the Pierce Anoint, which I'd be sacrificing a ton of damage for. Really, the best way to do it, though, is you'd be putting in jewels that have 20% Pierce or around 20% Pierce on it. That'd be the easiest way. I'd opted up not to do it. Why? Because I've ran both, right? Like I've ran Pierce and I've ran Chain, and I don't feel like I need Pierce. It's just... It's a personal thing. You can choose to do Pierce. Good on you if you want to do that. I have not felt like it. This is a really expensive jewel. Against the Darkness, small passive skills and radius also grant 1% maximum mana. That's how I'm getting some of my mana pool back, even though I am not using... where is it? Eldritch Battery, which converts all energy shield to mana. That's why when you see the amulet, the Everlasting Gaze, it'll convert that pool. It does the conversion after the amulet, though, so you end up with still a substantial, 6,000-7,000 energy shield pool, and you end up with 6,000 mana. It's a really, really good option. The problem is it's really hard to work Temporalis in with. So this is the way that I have found the most comfy to run this build. Some people are going to disagree with this, but again, it's just personal preference, and this is how I like running it. This is not a build guide. This is a build overview of what I've chose to do. I am not running, like I said, Mind Over Matter, so I'm not getting damage reduction from my mana pool. And I am still running Chaos Inoculation, which essentially I'm immune to Chaos damage, but you lose all your life because of it. My jewels pretty much all look similar to this. Spell damage, cast speed, max ES, and mana regen. For the most part, what you do need in this build is at least one, but really you want two. Recover mana on kill. Pretty important on this build. You can see I've got a 2% right there and a 1% right there. Eventually, I'll probably upgrade this jewel. But I am, if the pack size is decent, I'm completely zooming it back up to full mana, so it doesn't seem to be an issue. To have 3% total, I think I have 3% total. Back to this jewel, though. This jewel is about 40 divines. I think I got it for 40 divines. It's increased intelligence on your notable passives, and then it's 1% mana on your small passives. Most people are running it up here, but because on this cluster, I chose to just run the Ellie damage and not run... I'm not scaling magnitude of shock, and I am not critting, so these nodes aren't great nodes for me to take. So for me, these nodes probably just make the most sense. I could probably spec into this pretty soon. The problem is if I take this jewel and I swap it here, really here, and maybe the energy shield from focus nodes are good. I just personally, for how I'm running my build, I think it makes more sense here. I'm getting a solid amount of notables and passives in there. Again, this is subject to change. I could change this up, but for right now, this feels really good. There's not a whole lot of nodes on this top side that actually makes sense for me. Most of these are minion. I am running damage pen, lightning pen, and then lightning per intelligence. I do have quite a bit of intelligence. Where the hell is it? 326 intelligence, so this node is pretty strong for me. I'm running 60% increased maximum energy shield. The slower start of energy shield feels really bad, but because I'm using shock siphon on my gem link, where is it? Honestly, it's not a big deal for me. The only thing that sucks is bossing. This build is more map oriented than bossing oriented. Even though this can easily do all the bosses in the game, you can definitely make bosses feel more comfy than on this build. 25% intelligence, and then down here I took lightning pen again, and then more maximum lightning damage. Again, this scales, Wild Storm scales really well with the Anoint lightning rod on my whatever. On my amulet. Sorry guys, I'm still not feeling pretty crummy. I may stream tonight though. We'll see. We do have storms rolling through here pretty soon, so as long as I don't lose power, should be fine. But yeah, I hope this is a quick, decent little overview for people on the build. I got some requests of people asking to see the build, so hopefully that answered some questions for people on kind of what I've opted and what I've chosen to do. You don't have to run it like this. In fact, it's probably not completely optimized, but it's you know, it's working. It's crushing the game for me. So, yeah, guys, thank you so much, and have a great day.